Good afternoon. I want to welcome the members of the press, members of cabinet, the viewing and listening audience to another press conference, another PM's press conference. As usual, the Prime Minister will give a brief statement and then he'll take your questions. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris.
And of the media, thanks again for being here. I want to recognize at this conference the Attorney General, the Minister of Public Infrastructure, the Honorable Ian Patches-Libed. We also have the Honorable Minister for Health, etc., Senator Wendy Phipps, the Cabinet Secretary. We have the PS in the Prime Minister's office, and I'm also glad to have with us the Commissioner of Police acting. Again, good afternoon all. I am happy for this occasion to report to the nation by way of this live press conference. And I want to thank the media as the fourth estate of our democratic society for being here. It is now public knowledge that the first sitting of our National Assembly is due to be held on Thursday, 14th day of May, 2015. The Cabinet is pleased that His Excellency the Governor-General has summoned the Parliament, this being its first sitting since its dissolution on January 26, 2015, and the holding of general elections on February 16, 2015. Those elections, you are aware, produce a team unity government with a 5-year mandate. We have pledged to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the land, a pledge and an oath which we hold sacred. I am pleased to report that the date set for the convening of Parliament falls well within the Constitution and the National Assembly's Act, Chapter 2.01. Sections 46 and 23, respectively, of the Constitution and the National Assembly Act are germane in this regard. In sum, the law provides a 90-day window for the first sitting of the National Assembly from the holding of a general election of representatives if the Parliament, as was the case, was dissolved. We have complied with the Constitution, the laws of the land, and the procedural requirements of the standing orders of our National Assembly relating to the notice and order paper. I want to thank our Attorney General and all others who have provided legal support in this matter. And of course, I must thank all those who assisted in any way in the convocation of the first sitting and making arrangements in that regard. I want, in her presence, to thank Senator Phipps, because she has been playing a lead role at the cabinet level in giving advice and support with respect to these arrangements. Now, what will happen in Parliament on Thursday? Well, in terms of the substance of the things that will take place, you will have the normal protocol, entry, prayers, etc., etc. But the substantive matters are these. 1. The members of the Assembly shall elect a Speaker in accordance with Section 32 of the Constitution. Our nominee in this regard is Mr. Franklin Brand Esquire, a well-known businessman. The Speaker and his election will then be properly robed and will take over the chair Speaker's chair. The second matter will involve the Deputy Speaker. He or she will be elected in accordance with Section 32. I am pleased to announce, as we did before, that our nominee in this regard is Senator Mr. Michael Perkins. This, in our view, represents a fresh start in honoring and respecting the National Assembly. The irregular practice by the former regime in allowing the entire life of the last National Assembly to be pursued without abiding by the constitutional requirement of Section 32 for the appointment of a Deputy Speaker, and the game of brinksmanship in the appointment of Richard Skerritt as Deputy Speaker in the day, to have him removed in the very night, thereby triggering the vacancy in the office of Deputy Speaker, which his appointment was intended to cure. That situation will be a situation of the past. In our view, that was a tragedy and a telltale signs to the depths of disrespect and disdain to which the National Assembly would be brought by an insecure administration. The last Parliament had become marred by illegal attempts to impose an Attorney General on the people and our beloved country at the tail end of the debate on the Senator's Bill. The Senator's Bill was the heavy hand of a leader intent on achieving his way against the will of the elected majority. Thankfully, the High Court and the Court of Appeal declared the bill a nullity, void, and of no effect. Our collective conscience cried out when the appointment of the Attorney General, nullified by the court in the day, was resurrected by night by an obdurate and insensitive regime with no moral minimum, no sense of decency, and obviously no decorum. The serial abuses of the sanctity and integrity of our Parliament, and by extension the electorate, were at the egregious worst. The government were at the egregious worst when the government used every ruse to delay the motion of no confidence. Every parliamentary principle known to man was violated to satisfy the megalomaniac propensity of the country's misleader. When we thought that it could get no worse under the ex-regime, it took the backwardization of the parliament to an even lower plane when on January 16, 2015, it summoned an emergency sitting of the parliament without proper notice to opposition members, all with the attempt to force boundary changes on the people of our fair land. Thankfully, we in Team Unity went all the way to the Privy Council for Justice. 4 days before general elections, the law lords delivered the justice that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis deserved. That judgment convinced more decent persons to vote Team Unity. The cause of these transgressions and violations against the Parliament since 2013, the Senator's Bill, the motion of no confidence, and the boundaries case has been monetized at around $8 million, and we are still counting. The sad history of the last years of Parliament on the seas by an insecure administration must never repeat itself. I pledge, therefore, as the head of the new administration, to ensure always that the august institution of Parliament is respected, protected, and defended. The meeting of the Parliament on Thursday signals a fresh start, the redemption of order, decorum, respect, and competent management of the Parliament of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have accepted the responsibility to ensure that a Deputy Speaker is available and in service to the National Assembly. I want at this time to extend warm welcome to all the invitees to engage in our Parliament in a way befitting this august institution. The third substantive matter following the election of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker will be the taking of oaths by the members of Parliament elected and nominated. There is a high demand by the citizens to be part of this historic inaugural sitting of the Parliament. The Parliament is located within the government headquarters building. There is therefore a size constraint. Accordingly, not all can be seated within the chambers, so additional seating will be provided within the precincts of the Parliament, and big screens will bring real time for all to hear and see the momentous happenings during the convocation of Team Unity's inaugural Parliament. All radio stations have been invited to do live coverage, and state-owned ZIZ Broadcasting, I am advised, will be well prepared to stream this event live. We expect all who are invited to the Parliament or who will be in the precincts of the Parliament to be on their best behavior. Dress appropriately, with style and with taste. Take instructions given by those in charge of the day's event, and of course, the police and security forces on duty. The fourth important event to happen on Thursday will be the delivery of the throne speech. The throne speech, of course, is a major event for the inaugural session of Parliament. Coming so soon, after the general elections of February 16, 2015, the throne speech will outline elements of my government's contract with the people. It should be noted that this government has already begun to deliver on its commitments. You are aware, for example, that we have procured 16 million EC dollars to make payments to our former sugar workers. You are aware that we have provided 10 million EC dollars in budgetary support for the people of Nevis via their lawfully elected Nevis Island administration. And I was very heartened to hear some of the public infrastructural works that will be financed as a result of the $10 million provided from the federal administration to the NIA. And of course, all of us here are enjoying the reduction of VAT on critical items such as food, medicines, and funeral expenses. Indeed, this morning while journeying to Bastille, I allowed someone to drive with us, and she was saying, "Lord, it's a blessing. I could really see the difference now." She never appreciated how much VAT was taken out of her disposable income until she is now realizing the benefits of the removal of VAT from food and medicines. Of course, we have, since taking office, beefed up our support for law and order. For example, expanding the implementation of CCTV and St. Kitts, activating the mobile response unit of our police force, utilizing the services of foreign experts to assist us in the fight against crime. All these early successes and more are to be outlined in our throne speech. Who will deliver the Chown speech. The question of who will read the Chown speech has been posed repeatedly in the public. Some argued that the Governor General did not behave properly in relation to the constitutional challenges which our federation face. I, for my part, do not intend to revisit that situation, but I can say that my cabinet and I are agreed that the office of the Governor General is the highest office in the land, and it deserves to be treated with the respect and dignity commensurate with its auspicious standing. The office, of course, can be separated from the office holder, and we expect those who hold public office to strive by their conduct and behavior to ennoble their office. I am pleased to report that subsequent to audience with the Governor General, I am now in a position to say that His Excellency the Governor General has advised me that he will proceed and leave over the period 12 May to 17 May 2015. This, in effect, paves the way for one of our worthy citizens to read the Chown speech. I am honored to report that I have recommended the appointment of Mr. Samuel Weymouth Tapley Seaton, CVO QC, former Attorney General over the period 1980 to 95, as the Governor General Deputy during the said period of absence of the Governor General. His Excellency the Governor General, by instrument dated the 12th day of May, has granted the said appointment. The national community, I'm sure, will join me and my cabinet in celebrating this appointment of Mr. Seaton. Mr. Seaton is an illustrious son of the soil, cool, calm, collected, and of a meticulously chiseled intellect. I am personally pleased that he has accepted the honor of further national service at this level and at this time. Mr. Seaton will perform all of the functions of the office of the Governor General according to the Constitution with effect from the 12th May 2015. I want to pause here and to allow the media, if there are any questions, to pose on the subject matter. You would note that I've confined the opening statement to the matters pertinent, by and large, to the new parliamentary sitting that is due to take place on Thursday. And I've sought to encapsulate those substantive matters that would feature in that parliamentary sitting. Again, there's an open invitation to all to come and to be part of history in the making, a history which the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, by their own volition and having their God-given choice exercised, chose we, the good people of Team Unity, to lead this government and country. We now invite the media for questions, if any.
Carol Philip Tudor of the Democrat. Mr. Prime Minister, good afternoon. I wanted to ask if the decision of the Privy Council did this play a role in your decision to have consultation with the Governor General as to whether or not he would do the Chown speech. And secondly, I think I heard you say that $8 million circulated during the period of the boundary cases. And if that is so, and I see no reason why you would lie, who will pay this amount, and who will pay Mr. Mark Brantley et al.?
Well, I let the Attorney General in due course answer the matter to do with the Privy Council judgment. Suffice it to say that we are happy by the confirmation by the Privy Council that the attempt, the fraudulent attempt, I would say, to force new boundaries on the people of St. Kitts and Nevis that those attempts were without basis in law. And the Privy Council went further to say that much of what happened with respect to the proclamation are arguably now matters for court action and judicial review. But the Attorney General is the one who will advise the Cabinet with respect to the way forward and will deal with that matter. The $8 million is $8 million and counting. I think that was the phraseology I had used, because we are still receiving bills. Last time you recall that I said that I had received from the Ministry of Finance a request for about $134,000 from Delano Bart in relation to matters to do with those cases which we will call political cases. So bills are still coming in. I can say to you that during the period 2012 to 2015, some $2 million were paid to Senior Counsel Astafan, as far as the documentation that we have would suggest. I could say to you that we had other payments, for example, to a Roger Ford of over $500,000. We had other payments in relation to, this one is going to give me some trouble. This is a company, Debivoise, Blimpton, LLP, maybe French, $1.4 million. Peter Goldsmith, he too benefited to the tune. That's Peter Goldsmith. He comes in different form. So that is there. And the bills are still coming in. So we have had to pay in order to fight the political cases engineered by the government in some way by its inappropriate action, over $8 million of the taxpayers' money, and we are still counting in relation to that. Indeed, I should say that generally we have a significant problem with the way in which monies for legal expenses were, as it were, being expended. Monies with respect to defense of persons who are unable to pay, the substantial amounts which lawyers were able to charge really is an abomination to the good sense and to the fiscal prudence which ought to have existed. It was, as it were, a feast for all. So anything will go, and very extortionate fees were being charged. A cursory look at the government expenditure over 2010, and this is a government with a legal department, and this is just some. The government expended between 2010 and 2015, that little part of 2015 for which they were responsible, over $76,965,098.75. In other words, $77 million in legal fees and claims against the government. That is substantial for a small country. $80 million and counting. And counting. And you wondered, why was the government getting itself so often into issues involving the court? And why was such humongous amounts being proffered in satisfaction of legal fees? And we have a whole list of persons: Sylvester Anthony, Hesketh Benjamin, Anthony Astafan, Delano Bart QC. So Delano was not only at the SIDF, Delano was coming to the very government which was paying him as an ambassador to the UN. He was coming back to this government in terms of legal fees for undertaking work on behalf of the government. We have other names that are there. Lord Goldsmith, everyone now knows, Myers, Fletcher and Gordon, Roger Ford, and you go on and on with a list of lawyers with whom this government engage in ways which are of concern to us in this administration. And when you look, for example, at the budget for the Ministry of Agriculture over the said period, you could see that this really couldn't be reality. That budget for agriculture is small. This amount that the government has expended could have covered all the expenses for the Ministry of Agriculture, all the expenses for the Ministry of International Trade, Industry, Commerce, etc. And you ask yourselves, were there no discerning eyes within the government? Was there no conscience alive to the fact that clearly what was developing was almost akin to a parasitic oligarchy, feasting at the coffers of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis? And while this government did not dare wink an eye with respect to legal fees to a select group of persons, this government was not minded to spend at the Bastia High School. That same government was not minded to ensure that if you walk to what we will call the Harris home, that street is properly alight for the young people and their parents and the workers who walk there every day. That government that did not wink an eye in paying $80 million in recent times to those who it preferred to offer that to, was not minded to do anything for security at the Joseph and Franz Hospital until it became, as it were, a public outrage. Government is about prioritization, and government is about choices. And you would wonder, for example, why is it would the last administration take up our money, that is what the public monies are, and spend it in pursuing the senator's case, for example, when the court of first instance said this bill and all action relevant to that, this bill is null and void and of no effect. And the government, having dared us with its immoral ways, would the appointment be quashed this afternoon by 7 o'clock in the news, showing us utter contempt, make the same appointee to the position of Attorney General. And not satisfied with its own arrogance, the government then go on to spend millions of dollars to persecute a matter which had become, as it were, a dead issue because it had found the correct way ultimately to pursue the appointment. This is a government then always on the extreme side of good governance. This was a government basically with no sense of morality, decency, or decorum, or fiscal prudence. And that is what the reality of these expenditures would show. When you look through some of the legal opinion granted to the government in relation to the political case, the QCs were advising the government, as it were, no case in it, but we could buy you time. And this government, insecure as it was then, was prepared to use the public resources to buy political time. There was no merit in the cases which they were pursuing. They knew it from internal advice. And all the lawyers were offering, we could get you some time to get your house in order. And while the government was attempting to get its house in order, the citizens, many of them in McKnight, in Keon, in Tabernacle and Phillips, had no houses, no doors to close, no windows. But this government needed political time to get its house in order. And while they were spending millions And they were prepared to spend 80 million in a short window on legal fees. And this not all. This is just some of the special cases which we brought to your attention. The mass of the people who are suffering. It is the same mindset you are seeing over and over. A mindset which says that we could create a program and, as it were, get the country on an unsustainable program for over $130 million. You and I must pay for that program to continue. And what is the end goal of that? Political survival. We needed a fresh start, and the country gave us that fresh start. The Attorney General, are you ready? With respect to the Privy Council. I thought I will hold him a bit for you a while.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I think the question was whether the decision yesterday in relation to the application before the Privy Council in relation to the boundaries matter would have influenced what has happened in relation to His Excellency having a leave of absence this week. And obviously it would not have had anything to do with that, inasmuch as I think that the decision yesterday came after His Excellency had indicated his preference to take a short leave of absence from the Federation. So he would not have had. But it's important to note, nonetheless, that the decision of the Privy Council did vindicate those members of Team Unity who took this matter not only to the High Court, but all the way to the Privy Council. It was an egregious decision by the former regime to want to foist upon the country a parliament without any notice to pass boundaries that had not properly had the ink dried on its report and circulated. And I think the decision to seek a stay from the High Court has been vindicated by the decision of the Privy Council. And for those who are not au fait with what actually happened, we now know that the court has said that when His Excellency signed the proclamation to dissolve Parliament at 6:20 on Friday the 16th of January, he did so and ousted the report from having any effect as it now stands. Parliament was dissolved at 6:20 on Friday the 16th. The Privy Council had now said that the purported changes to boundaries came into effect on Tuesday the 20th of January, 4 days later, so that the old boundaries would stand. It means that if those purported boundary changes are valid, they will only come into effect at the next dissolution of Parliament, unless, as the Prime Minister has indicated, a decision is taken to continue the challenge of the boundary report. We do have the option to challenge those boundary changes because we feel that the boundaries report was not conducted properly. But it does mean that even if we do not challenge the boundary changes, the old boundaries would still be in force as it stands today. Thank you.
Prime Minister Ken Richards, I want to look forward to one of the challenges that may face your administration, and that is in relation to the new Banking Act. The Attorney General has indicated that that will be going to Parliament shortly. There have been issues in relation to that Act in countries like Antigua and Barbuda and Grenada, sovereignty issues have arisen because the suggestion is that if a license is granted to a bank in one OECS country, then it stands in all of the countries. The granting of bank licenses, too, we're told, is also being taken from the finance minister. The regulator will have to deal with that. Startup funds for a new bank, EC $20 million as opposed to $5 million. Concern about too much power being put in the hands of the ECCB as a regulator. All of those things are surfacing. Has there been dialogue with the banking community here in St. Kitts and Nevis before the act goes before the Parliament? You have bankers in Antigua due to take strike action tomorrow over the issue. Do we have these concerns? Does your government have these concerns here in St. Kitts and Nevis, as expressed by Antigua and Barbuda and Grenada?
Thank you for that important question. The matter of the new banking act, as you said, was intended to be an OECS harmonized piece of legislation. And the aim and intention in large measure was an attempt at protecting depositors, as they put it, in the context of the financial marketplace that now obtains. And the thinking that many of the banks, in particular the local banks, were challenged financially and that the marketplace was quote-unquote overbanked. In the context of that, you would have heard maybe 5 years now, the governor of the bank been talking about this 8-point plan. And one of the planks of that plan was to do with the consolidation of banks, because there were too many attempting, as it were, to feed from the same pie. And so the market share was being cut in smaller units, which vitiated against the viability of the individual banks. Therefore, after setting up a committee which would have pursued this topic to the region, then came to the legislative agenda with respect to that. In formulating that bit of legislation, we have seen from Antigua a very negative reaction. We in St. Kitts and Nevis have not yet passed the act, but we are part of the OECS union, so to speak, and we are minded to move with respect to the legislation. But we have sent out the legislation for consideration by the bank. We are aware, for example, that the Bank of Nevis is one of the local banks. We have sent to that bank. We have sent to National Bank to get their input. And the Honorable Attorney General will pursue with the legal department at the ECCB further discussions with respect to this particular bill. And until we are fully assured, we would say that we will do nothing to injure the financial interests either of depositors or of any other entity within the jurisdiction of St. Kitts and Nevis. And certainly I've advised the Honorable Attorney General that he should also have conversation with his colleague, Attorney General in Antigua, and so one could get a clearer understanding as to the extent and nature of the concerns which are now coming to the fore in that particular jurisdiction. So we are aware of those concerns. We are mindful to consult with the relevant parties with respect to that piece of legislation. We have already started that consultations. We are hoping to have more formal discussions with at least the two indigenous banks in relation to their views on the matter, to have further discussions with essential the ECCB with respect to that legislation.
Can I have a quick follow-up, Prime Minister?
Yes.
Sovereignty issue in terms of when a license is granted to one bank in one island, it works in all the islands. Does the administration have concerns there? You've been an economic union, and people will say, yes, you have to concede some sovereignty, but there's a lot of questioning about the sovereignty issue.
What I would say to you is, once we have had the input from the relevant parties, and for us critically is what the local banks think about this bit of legislation, then we'll have a fuller picture to take to the cabinet and to get a cabinet consensus with respect to that matter. The matter is not yet properly before the cabinet, though we have had, if you wish, sidebars in relation to that particular topic. But it is not being fully discussed by our cabinet. We are expecting, and that is why the Attorney General says it, that is an important bit of legislation. And we are expecting, particularly as the host country to the ECCB, to be in a position within a week or two to take that bit of legislation to the Parliament, not necessarily for it to have its 3 reading to become law, but at least to begin that process of legislative engagement with respect to that particular bit of legislation. And that is in sync with what happened in Antigua. They proceeded with it. Don't think the bill is yet law in Antigua, but it gave one an opportunity to become engaged, as they now are more engaged in Antigua than has been in any other jurisdiction within the OECS. And so we will look at that. I think the Antigua situation will cause even those countries such as St. Lucia, such as St. Vincent, that went before with the act, to take a second look to say, did we miss something? Were we so concerned about the big picture result of trying to preserve the integrity and the stability of the financial marketplace that we did not see this particular dilemma? The question of sovereignty is always a real one. What do you cede? And what do you cede to entities which have no, as it were, power granted to them by the people in a democratic system? So that is something that we will look at. But I would say to you that in the context of where they are saying, listen, you are overbank, it was felt in some of the discussions, if you continue to let individual member states decide whether to have 2 more banks. So, for example, if somebody wants to open a bank, Mr. Willett, for example, to open a bank in St. Kitts, and it is at the St. Kitts level, governmental level, that is being made. How do you ensure that what we are attempting to achieve is not then being undermined by individual jurisdiction pursuing a jurisdictional agenda as opposed to the regional one? And it was felt, and at the time, this administration had not been part of the early discussion. So this is an inheritance which we have and which we'll have to deal with carefully. But clearly what was being at play is that if it is at the central bank, then you are having a common decisional focus. No means no for everywhere within the context of the application of the ECCB's jurisdiction. So when Willett comes to St. Kitts says no, he can't go to Antigua, and Antigua say yes, because they're acting independently. That was, I think, part of the rationale for elevating that, and as it were, yielding that for the regional decision-making to be made, so that it's been made, as it were, across the board. But that has come back as an issue which needs revision. Ultimately, it is a responsibility of the government to take care of those who are within its jurisdiction, and certainly it's a matter that we will look at and we will give consideration to.
Prime Minister Harris, Glenn Batt from myview.com. If we can backtrack a bit to the issue of the boundaries change and the ruling, the official formal ruling handed down a few days ago, well, yesterday actually, by the Privy Council. It would seem to me that that formal decision indicates to the government that there could be in the future a contentious issue coming into the next election, in that this particular boundary, this new boundary, was one that was fought against by the Team Unity group. How do you intend to tackle that issue and also explain it within the context of the proposed reform of the electoral system?
Well, I think the electoral reform is really the critical matter, that we have to ensure that the electoral reform is being pursued in a transparent and fair way. And if that happens, then the outcome which flow from the work of the Boundaries Commission will be one with which everyone should be able to live with, because fairness and equity and all the other principles will flow with respect to that. We are committed to electoral reform, and we will do it in a good way and a sensible way. And certainly we do not anticipate that we are going to end up in the kind of situation which has been the situation of the past, where we have had to go to the court and so on and so on. The things that we condemned then, we will make right. Now it is our turn at the crease, so to speak. So if it was a no ball then, we're certainly not going to bowl that same no ball under our watch. I don't know if the Attorney General wants to add anything in relation to that matter.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. You recall that the major focus or factor in which the Boundaries case was struck down first in 2009 and again in 2013 had to do with the issue of consultation. There had been, as it was, improper discussion among the relevant parties, the people, and for that matter, the members of Parliament. There was no proper consultation. And the court did say, quite unequivocally, that unless there is, once you embark on consultation, it must be fair and proper. The Constitution does not give, as it was, a mandate to any consultation. But once you embark on it, you invoke it. Once the government or the Boundaries Commission invites members, parties, the people to be involved in consultation, it must be fair and proper. And what is fair consultation, according to the court? The Commission has to formulate its proposals and present them to any party it wants to consult. What has happened in the past, individual parties who are registered were invited to put forward recommendations. And having received those recommendations, the Commission went forth and did its own thing. The court has indicated that it is very clear. Once you have devised your own recommendations, these must be allowed to be considered by those who have been consulted. And once they have consulted your recommendations, the Commission can then move forward. So there has been a very clear breakdown on the issue of consultation in the past. It's not only unique to St. Kitts, because we recall that in Antigua, there the court also said that attempts to change boundaries there were also not proper. There had been no proper consultation. So the matter going forward will be that once it is done properly, once the rules are followed, then there will be boundary changes in the context that the Boundaries Commission sees fit. And so there is a distinction there. It's not a question of objecting for the sake of objecting, but it's very clear that the way in which the Boundaries Commission conducted itself was deemed to be improper.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Attorney General. Let me also acknowledge the presence of Minister of Agriculture, etc., the Honorable Eugene Hamilton, distinguished member for St. Christopher 8. He just told me, by the way, boundaries or no boundaries, he would have won. I tend to agree.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. L.K. Hewlett from the St. Kitts Nevis Observer. I'll make my questions very, very short. I'll skip the preamble. Can you say why the payment to the sugar workers was prioritized over the Bastia High School, the new Bastia High School? And what's the situation with the Electoral Office investigation that the Nevis office has been open for some weeks now and the St. Kitts office is still closed? I think I'll leave it there. And if you all plan to repeal this land for debt swap so that we could get some land to buy the actual citizens of the country.
Thank you very much for those questions. I think the last two were intended for the Honorable Attorney General. I'll therefore allow him to deal with that matter. With respect to the sugar workers' payment, it was not prioritized, as it were, above the Bastia High School. Both are important matters. Both are on the profile of the government for urgent action. But you would note in particular that the source of funds for the sugar workers' payment is not the consolidated fund or the treasury. That is coming from a friendly government, the government of Venezuela, that had played a part already in supporting the sugar workers and were therefore minded to see, as it were, that group of persons with whom it had a link, with whom it had provided support to housing program and other forms of assistance, that they continue, as it were, to thrive and to do well. And so we found a government that was willing to support this being one of our priority, and we said yes with respect to that. And you probably are aware that the matter of the Bastia High School was still one that had required some ongoing investigation to determine, as it were, what are the causes. In fact, I think I have Senator Phipps, who is here, but the Bastia High situation, our commitments, let me rephrase, our commitment with respect to the Bastia High School is that we are committed to building a brand new school. Before we embark upon that, we have to get the technical advice, and the advice to date has not yet been definitively made available as to the cause. So one of the options always, you can build a Bastia High where Bastia High is. You can build a Bastia High in any of several competing locations. We want to make sure we have it right before we move with respect to that. But it is still a priority matter for the government and the Ministry of Education in particular. Senator Phipps, would you want to add anything with respect to that?
I think essentially the Prime Minister has covered it. There is one additional project that should have started here this afternoon, and that is a visit by a team of occupational safety and health professionals. To the best of my knowledge, the Minister of Education, the Honorable Sean Richards, should be meeting with those individuals this afternoon. That is the reason he's not here, because that meeting is taking place concurrently with our press conference. So coming out of that meeting and the resulting evaluations that would take place, we would be in a better position to understand exactly what we are dealing with in terms of getting to the bottom of the underlying causes for the problems at Bastia High School. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm so happy that Senator Phipps is within the cabinet, because she had been intimately involved, you would recall, in the decisions with respect to the closure, as she served on a committee that was called towards the end to deal with a way forward for the school. And so her presence will be a consistent reminder to us that that is a matter which we will not allow to rest. But in all things, we are going to move prudently and not in haste. And the people of St. Kitts and Nevis will get the best results from that approach, including all the children and teachers. We do not prefer that the situation which now prevails with the shift system, that should continue for any excessive period of time. And none of us want that, I believe, neither teachers, nor principals, nor union, nor parents. And so we are on accord in that. But we have to, as it were, bring closure. And as the minister just said, that process is running its course. Today we have the professional people who are here in consultation. And once we have that, we'll have a basis for action.
The other questions on is that the AG would
Yes.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. In relation to the Electoral Office, you'd recall that when we took office, there had been serious infractions at the Electoral Office. An investigation has been ongoing, and we are now reaching a point where it's beginning to wind down, where we can make a preliminary report shortly. As it is, we have had professional assistance from London, Proven Legal Technologies, which is a company involving good governance, has been here. It involves not just technical people, but people involved as Queen Counsels and a reputable firm of solicitors who have been doing an investigation. They have been looking at the databases that were involved in the use of the voters list, voters register. We've also had to engage Fujitsu Barbados, which is a company that had installed the software that managed the Electoral Office. Over the last week, their representative, another company out of the Dominican Republic, has been here at the Electoral Office and has now given a clean bill of health to the computer systems. The servers have been looked at and have been brought back online. We have had to look at the internal network systems within the Electoral Office and with regards to Nevis. As it is, we now will be embarking on a short period of training for staff to look at the software involved. And shortly, very shortly, we'll be in a position to declare that the system is ready to go forward, and so we can start once more to do the registration of individuals for the voters list. We'll, in a short space of time, be making an announcement as regards the annual register of voters and the what will happen in regards to the monthly lists that should have been going through the process of claims and objections. That will be the list for December 2014, January 2015, February 2015. These may well need the intervention of the Parliament to pass subsidiary legislation so that we can move forward in a proper and legal fashion. But as it is, we will be making a preliminary report as to the investigations in the not-too-distant future.
And so that report is going public? It's going to be made to the public?
It will be made to the public.
So it will also speak to the criminal element of the investigation?
At this point in time, it would be improper for me to say whether there is a criminal element or not. The report will determine on its face the facts as has been discovered, and if it rises to the point of being misfeasance in government or malfeasance, the criminal element, the government will take what is required depending on the evidence that has been found.
CID doesn't investigate civil matters. Assuming CID was involved, then we were looking at potential criminal act.
The CID was called in to investigate a breach of the Electoral Office. We'll then determine, once the report is final or is finished, what course of action will be taken in terms of an illegal prosecution.
And for that? Sorry, you forgot that one.
The land for debt swap, which was a very important to the Team Unity movement, and was of grave concern to many people in St. Kitts that the 1,200 acres of land had been taken out away from the people and transferred to the National Bank. This matter will now come before the Cabinet, and the Cabinet will determine in what form and at what stage we'll be moving forward with this matter. It will be a little premature for me to say what exactly will happen, but during the course of the next few months, we will be determining the course going forward.
Thank you, Attorney General. Land is a sensitive matter. What we would say is that we are committed to ensure that land is available to all of our citizens and residents at affordable prices. And we can say that in due course, as the Attorney General has just said, we will come more fully to the public with respect to certain discoveries which have been made with respect to the allocation of land in general. We have, for example, concerns with respect to several land transactions in which the Social Security Board had become involved with, land in the Keon area, in which persons and well-known supporters were able to, as it were, become involved in land transactions, millions of dollars. At the time when the actuarial report, at least the very last one, had put a warning to Social Security with respect to engagement in certain real estate transactions. Beacon Heights, as it were, over 100 million or thereabout, having been expended, only 10 houses to show. So we have those concerns, and we are going through the maze of information to try to get it right so that when we come to the public, there can be no denial. So on that matter, we are near a position where we would be in a position to make a more comprehensive statement with respect to land matters. What we do know, that there were several shady deals, in our view, deals with which we are highly uncomfortable, and after having ventilated them in Cabinet, we certainly would bring them into the public domain. I want, though, since he's here, the Acting Commissioner of Police, and I got a text which basically invited me to ask of you, I don't know if that is allowed at this press conference, but in the public interest, I've been asked that you should say what are some of the things that had been accomplished by the police having regard to the last press encounter, I think, in which you say within a short window that you will be able to report some results. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but certainly as a good representative of the people, I couldn't deny them putting that question to you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. But I have some guidance that I will have to follow from the Office of Director of Public Prosecution. But I'll make a few words. But first, allow me to get involved into something that I believe it is more for general knowledge. And I will go to the Parliament that's upcoming. I believe as a police officer and as the Acting Commissioner, I must make an appeal before I address the other issue. The police expects a large turnout on Thursday, but we expect order to be maintained. We are not responsible for the invitations, but we will be guided by the following, and we have made suggestions in one or two areas, that we intend that persons who are invited to this event will enter government headquarters anytime after 8 a.m. when it is time. But we hope that all who are invited will understand that it is important to be seated by 9:30 a.m. I want to appeal, please get here once you have an invitation to be inside, to be seated by 9:30. The reason I must say that we do have a military parade, a guard of honor on the outside. It means that we must use the space in the street for that guard of honor, but yet we will not be preventing the public from enjoying what they wish to see. And so therefore, on the side of government headquarters, directly in front of government headquarters, we do not wish for the public to be on that side. The side that people know as the government printer side, education, or development bank side, that will be acceptable by the police. And I borrow the words of the Honorable Prime Minister, where he said, just nice, just appropriate. And that signifies that you are coming to an event, because it is my understanding, my information, the police information, that the government will work with the police by ensuring that there are big TVs and video links outside so that the public will enjoy, because our concern, and the government seems to be aware of it, the entire population of St. Kitts and Nevis, Honorable Prime Minister, cannot hold in government headquarters. And no attempt should be made by anyone to make that happen. But my concern a lot is for the public to understand that area and that understanding. We expect that we will have police officers there. We will do some restriction of traffic in and around, but focusing a lot on vehicular traffic. We want members of the public to understand we will allow you to go by, but you must understand and cooperate. But we must restrict vehicular traffic in and around government headquarters in an orderly way. So that is my appeal regarding, even though the Prime Minister did not ask me to address police issues. Honourable Prime Minister, I've indulged, and may the Chairman and others here accept and understand why I've indulged. Now, towards the police and the information, I want to say this, that the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force is pleased to announce that over the last 2 weeks, due to considerable hard work by its members and widespread cooperation of the public and the use of several intelligence-led policing, we have made significant progress in a number of homicides and non-fatal shooting. Arrests in relation to drug smuggling and important seizures of illicit items destined to Her Majesty's prison. That was also accomplished. While it is important to keep the country abreast of efforts of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, especially in light of our new trust built on teamwork, use of technology, cooperation from the members of the public, and partnership with other law enforcement agencies, consideration must be given to letting the families of victims aware of our progress before specific reference is made to any particular case. At the moment, as I speak, we are trying to inform some families who are victims to ensure that they are informed of certain course of action that we will be taking. And I am guided, and I wish to read from instructions from the Director of Public Prosecution Office. And it says very clear that the Police High Command have advised by the Office of Director of Public Prosecution that they have thoroughly pursued the contents of case reports reviewed and has reviewed cases in accordance with the Code for Prosecutors and examined the applicable law. It is the indication of the Office of Director of Public Prosecution that criminal proceedings will soon be instituted in respect of these matters. However, I wish to put here a warning that is given to us that I must abide with today. The principles of best practice state clearly that matters of this nature should be closely monitored to avoid adverse pre-trial publicity, which can lead to a possible abuse of process. And I just mention it here to say that I cannot today give the specifics, Honourable Prime Minister and Honourable Attorney General, but they will come as we move forward with some arrests. But I need the public to be aware that I wish to express thanks a lot to the public. I believe the last 2 weeks we have seen a lot. And the lot that I'm speaking about is not only what will come with certain homicides, but I however wish to point out that a considerable amount of drugs placed in bananas has been uncovered heading to Her Majesty's prison. A number of cell phones have also been seized from heading to the penal institution. This again have resulted from the cooperation from the public, and as I alluded to, intelligence-led policing. We are letting the public know that we will not waver or tire in our efforts to reduce crime and violence in our country. And as I speak, the police are actively pursuing those who intend to use our misguided and vulnerable youth to perpetrate serious crime. I wish to let you know that we have arrested someone regarding to the trafficking of cocaine on April the 28th, 2015. I believe that release was made. But this was all part of what was driven by our intelligent-led policing. And this arises when persons sought to have cocaine entering our country illegally. So I wish that while I take the guidance of the Office of Director of Public Prosecution, we will give a press release that names the names of those who are charged. But at this moment today, we must ensure that families who are listening must not get it via this media today until they are aware, because we must be guided. I want to thank you, Honourable Prime Minister. I hope I have not disappointed anyone by not calling name, but let's look forward for the effort we have made, and I say that the arrests are coming very shortly. I thank you, Honourable Prime Minister, in terms of that.
Thank you very much. We're about to... Oh, sorry. Let me also acknowledge the presence of ACP Vaughn Henderson, who is here, and thank him for his support with respect to the policing and security efforts which are being undertaken at this time.
Good afternoon, Alicia Daniel Blake, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service. Prime Minister, this question is also crime related. You noted that in the throne speech, mention will be made of the CCTV progress as well as the use of the mobile unit. Can you also tell us some additional information in terms of the short-term national security police strategy?
Well, that would be a matter for the Commissioner of Police. He has his ACP with him. I don't know if ACP is ready to take a shot at that one. Yes? ACP, and listen.
Thank you very much, Honourable Prime Minister, for the opportunity. A special good afternoon to members of the media and the listening audience. I'm unscripted today, but I will hazard a shot at the question. The question is about short-term strategy to combat the criminal activities that we are experiencing today. And I'm happy to report, as the Assistant Commissioner with responsibility for operations, that there are a number of short-term programs that we have in place at this time. You will see that we have increased our police visibility, our operations in relation to vehicular checkpoints, that is setting up operations in major cross sections, searching of vehicles for illicit drugs and arms and ammunition. We have stepped up on that. We believe that police visibility is essential in fighting crime. The public is to be reassured that the police is there to assist them. And so, by and large, we believe that the police presence out there using our major resources, like the mobile command unit, we have the drug unit and the special services unit, and the Delta squad out there doing major search operations as well. And so I'm happy to report that with these short-term initiatives in place to beef up, if you would have, what we have been doing in a more aggressive effort to confront the criminal activities out there. But saving to say, what we have not overlooked is our approach in relation to community policing. We believe that community policing is not soft policing. It is engaging the general public in a systematic way, giving them ownership of the crime problem as well. We are cognizant that the crime situation in the Federation is not the responsibility of the police alone. It involves all stakeholders, the schools, the churches, and even coming out of the ACCP's conference, we have heard the advice of Dr. Lee Brown, who is the father of community policing, that it is essential that we engage the general public in our fight against crime. And so this afternoon I am happy for this platform to appeal to the general public once more that we are going to be engaging them in town hall meetings, in school liaison officer going into our schools and our community walkthroughs that has been taking place in Division B already, our church parades, coming out and engaging the general public in a systematic way. We believe that by and large, going forward, the general public will be more assured and more reassured that the police is not only here to enforce the law and to arrest the young people of our nation, but also involved in the rehabilitative measures so that we have a more productive society. Thank you very much.
Before you move, Stanford, I think I'm next.
Is there a follow-up?
Yes, one question, as you are. Yes, Stanford Conway, SKN Vibes. This morning, I received a complaint from a mother whose son is out of the country and he's finding a very hard time in acquiring a job. I've spoken about this issue before, but not under the, I should say, purview of the current Commissioner of Police. And at that time, I think that you were doing your law course. The point that I want to make is simply this. The media is restricted from entering the court when there is a preliminary inquiry. The media cannot be there. What you find happening with the police force, you will send through your department of public relations who is being charged, what they're being charged with or for, and also you'll find that person's photograph. We, the media, disseminate to the public. It goes online and the world sees it. When the case reaches the court at the preliminary inquiry level and the media cannot be there, we cannot do anything to show that that person was set free or exonerated, so to speak. What I'm asking for today is for the police force, through its public relations department, provide us with such information whenever those persons are being exonerated. It has created a serious problem. And I have to find a solution before the night is over to say to the world through SKN Vibes Online that that person who was charged in 2009 or 2010 was exonerated and is still finding a hard time to get a job in the United Kingdom. I have to find a solution. So please, do not put us through that exercise. Let us be informed of those individuals who have been exonerated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stanford Conway. That's a very important question, and I don't think that I need to hazard stepping in front of my Commissioner acting to tell you that we as an organization will be committed to that approach, because on the face of it, it is a fair approach that persons who have been charged and who have been exonerated be offered the courtesy of that exoneration publicly, especially when the arrests were publicized. But if I might add, even in relation to persons who have been convicted, we are happy to say, to report, that there is now the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act that outlines certain procedures whereby a person with a conviction for a number of years, suffice it that he remains of good behavior and keep himself off the criminal books, that his records, his criminal records could be expunged. And so all of these are part and parcel that helps with the rehabilitation, the rehabilitative efforts of the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force. So I want to thank you for that question, and I will ensure that our commitment is kept alive to make public those persons who have been exonerated. Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to add one initiative in terms of the short-term response that has to do specifically in Nevis, where we are now having a deployment with respect to the St. Kitts Nevis Defence Force assisting in crime fighting on the island of Nevis. So there have been some important first step actions to arrest and reduce the incidence of criminal activity in the Federation. And I want to applaud the Commissioner acting, those of the High Command, of course all in the line of duty, because without the vigilance and support and response of all officers from the Constable up to the High Commissioner, we would not achieve the results which we so desire and deserve. One last question, would it be? Jason?
Two brief questions. They're very short. One, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines' website was recently under cyber attack, reportedly from ISIL. Are we protected? Are our government internet sites protected? That's question number one. The second one, possibly for Minister Liebert. Could you give an update on the housing program for the residents of Newtown that was being done in conjunction with the government of Venezuela? I know some technicians were supposed to be here. What's going on with that?
Okay, I will allow the Attorney General and then Minister Liebert to deal with those two questions. Sorry.
Well, thank you very much. The question about the security of our digital network, the ICT networks in the country, is of paramount importance. At the moment, there is a review going on in relation to the technologies that we do have. We are in the process of revamping the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, and an announcement to be made shortly of a new commission that will be appointed. And as it is, there is going to be, as it was, a general review and overhaul of the systems as they stand. Okay.
Thank you. Honourable Minister of Public Infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, and to Jason for the question. With respect to the housing program on the Wellington Road and West Street area, we are just completing the preliminary designs, after which we'll do some costing. The Venezuelan government is kept abreast, and we'll also engage in consultation with those people who are from the area, East Bastia, who we expect to be housed in the particular project. I can say off the bat, the preliminary designs would suggest that we will be able to house at least 60 families in that area, and that would make a very great impact on the housing shortage in that particular area.
Thanks. Just to add that Minister Liebert has taken on this with a passion, and I'm sure if ever there were to be a delivery, it will happen under his watch. In this particular project, he has the full commitment and support of the Prime Minister, and we will make it happen for the people of East Barstow.
Mr. Harris? No, it's not a follow-up. But Mr. Harris, just a quick question then. During your campaign, your team basically looked at the JNF hospital and indicated that they were in short supply of various medicines and various equipment and that kind of thing. What is the status now of the hospital? What programs are being implemented to rectify those situations? And secondly, in relation to your legislative agenda, could you point out to us what would be your perhaps two top priority areas in bringing legislation to the National Assembly?
Thank you very much. I'll take the last question first. The legislative agenda, by and large, will reflect issues impacting upon the economy. We are going to, for example, be treating with the OECS Model Banking Act. That is something that is somewhat urgent. We had been advised, and it did say that we are the host country. We are lagging in terms of its implementation, and that within a period of about 2 weeks, we intend to receive formally feedback from those persons with whom we have been consulting. And so we will move with that piece of legislation in amended form, if that is what comes in from the consultation. But that is a piece of legislation that we are committed to take forward in order to preserve the integrity of the financial space in the OECS. Secondly, of course, we have announced, I think in the last press conference, that we were going to move post-haste in implementing certain reforms with respect to the Citizenship by Investment program. And so we are going to make the necessary amendments, for example, where an economic citizen is found guilty of, say, terrorism, that we will empower the minister to be able to do a revocation of that person's citizenship. Some of these matters are more pressing than some have in regard to the reality that is prevailing now. Of course, other matters in relation to the good governance agenda about which we have been speaking in the campaign, those two are high on the agenda. We will be reviewing the priority items from time to time, and that again will fall within the purview of the Honorable Attorney General. He has, since we've been in government, brought already a list of items for consideration. We have to, from time to time, review and revisit in light of exigencies operating. But we are committed in the next 2 weeks to be back before the Parliament. Two of the bills that will be on the order paper would, of course, be the OECS Banking Act and the matter to do with legislation with respect to the CBI program. Other legislative matters will be on the agenda, and of course, in keeping with our commitment to observe the relevant traditions, we will advise the public and ensure that information is in the public domain in adequate time.
Good afternoon.
One last question.
Precious Mills, Leeward Thames Trace FM. Mr. Prime Minister,
sorry, and I will hear the question, and then I will allow the Minister of Health to give a response to the first question posed by Mr. Barth.
FM. During a recent radio interview, former Prime Minister Dr. Douglas highlighted that there was some type of delay in him getting the necessary instrument as it relates to the opposition body of Parliament. Can you give a comment to this, please? And my second question is, what is Team Unity's impression on the procession of, in terms of the numbers of people who participated in the Labour Day march for the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party?
Okay. I don't know what was the delay and why he's concerned, because I don't know that any instrument would have changed the position of opposition. So I am happy that at long last he has accepted that he is part of the opposition. Whatever instruments are to be prepared are prepared following the normal processes that hold within the government. So that is nothing over which to make any noise, and I am not aware of any delay. After all, it will be the judgment of the government to determine the priorities of all the matters that fall in the reach and in the ambit of the government. But certainly we will do nothing at all to change his position of being a member of the opposition. So he need not be concerned about that. With respect to the march, I myself did not see, but people did report that it was one of the smallest marches on Labor Day. Again, that speaks volumes. So I could only deal with the facts and the opinions that I've adduced from them. I won't want to share at this particular moment in time. Yes, I now invite the Honourable Minister to speak on the health issues.
Okay, Mr. Batt, in answer to your question, which I think was that you stated that Team Unity would have alluded to during its campaign to issues at the Joseph N. France General Hospital, including but not limited to shortages of supplies. Am I correct? That was the question. Okay, in answer to your question, what I would tell you is that since taking office, our government has gone about the business of conducting audits at various sections of the Joseph N. France General Hospital. Those audits would take into account not just the issue of supplies, but also the operational structure of the entire facility, operating theatre, laboratories, accident and emergency, the wards, etc., back office work, and so forth. We have also been in the process of doing a similar exercise at Pogson as well as at Mary Charles as well. And later on, by extension, Minister Hamilton and I will also be conducting our own ongoing assessments at the other medical infrastructure that government would have invested in, specifically the health centers throughout the island of St. Kitts. And by extension, because we do have a unity approach to government now, we will be in collaboration with the Nevis Island government doing the same on Nevis. What I would also indicate to you is that in our initial discussions with the various sectors of workers within the JNF hospital infrastructure, we, after meeting with the medical staff, specifically the doctors, they have asked, specifically the Medical Association, to be allowed to be part of the process in terms of coming up with a comprehensive assessment in terms of what they consider to be the most dire areas of need, what they consider to be sore spots, what are the things that patients complain about most. Yes, a lot of it has been reported to us. Mr. Hamilton and I can't continue to count the amount of appointments we've had to accommodate members of the public as they continue to share with us their own issues and concerns with the Jane France Hospital. But we are presently awaiting the report from the Medical Association. That report should have been turned in to us by the 30th of April, but through their president, Dr. Davian Wilkin, I think is the person who is representing them at this time, they have requested that we allow them another 30 days, which will expire at the end of May, in terms of getting that report to them. In order to expedite that report, what would have happened is that there would have been a division of the work among 8 subcommittees. She has indicated to us by letter that she would have received information from about half of those committees, and the other 4 are forthcoming. In the interim, we have also been able to secure a lot of advice, some of which we have gotten pro bono. What what we have discovered, Minister Hamilton and I, is that there are a number of citizens with medical backgrounds, people who have worked outside in the diaspora, who have come forward with a willingness and an interest in serving their own country, in looking at ways in which they can improve the medical service in St. Kitts and Nevis, not limited to what goes on in the hospital itself, but also in terms of specific areas, in terms of eye care, in terms of issues such as orthopedics and so forth, and also in terms of general assistance for our citizens who are less fortunate to be able to afford their own type of preferred medical care going forward. And then along with all these issues that we are undertaking, of course, we are also actively engaged in a continued exercise in terms of research and best practices, in terms of delivering to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis the comprehensive health coverage that we have promised. So I don't know if Mr. Hamilton wanted to add anything to that, and I hope that answer satisfies what you have for the time being.
Thank you very much. Yes? Yes.
Parliament is in 2 days. Do you yet know who the opposition senator would be? The ears on the grounds are indicating that it would be Nigel Carty. Can you confirm or deny that?
I can confirm that I have heard that. Nigel Carty is the senator being proposed by those in the opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you again for coming, and to say a very special thank you to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis for having granted us, as a cabinet of the country, an opportunity to serve. We really want to do this in an admirable way, and we continue to ask for your support as we pursue the commitments, the promises that we have made to you, the people, and to deliver them in good time over a period of 5 years. That is the contract that we have had with you. 5 years, not 5 days. And we are going about this in a very organized and deliberate way, being careful to avoid mistakes. We haven't made any yet. That is remarkable. None has been pointed out to us by the press, but we have continued to do our very best on behalf of the people. And we said from day one, we will not hurry, because we have learned from the wisdom of our foreparents, hurry dog would eat rock on. That's not on the menu for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis under the Team Unity government. So thanks very much, and we look forward to seeing as many of you who are willing and able come out to the Parliament and the precincts of the Parliament, I should add, on Thursday for the official inaugural Parliament of the Team Unity government, and again vindicate your own expressions of confidence that you repose in us on the 16th of February 2015. To God be the glory. I thank you very much for coming.